Hey again, happy Monday. Welcome back to the latest in our Read Aloud series. Today, March 1st, marks the start of Women's History Month. And so I figured a good way to kick that off was to dip into one of our new biographies that came. It's part of a series that looks at famous individuals through history when they were children. We've done a few of these already. And tonight's is when Amelia Earhart built a roller coaster. Amelia Earhart was different than other girls of her day. She loved action and adventure. Instead of wearing dresses while she played, she wore pants. She loved running along the bluffs near the Missouri River. And instead of dreaming of marriage and a family, Amelia dreamed of flying. Amelia Earhart became one of America's best-known aviators. She was an inspiration to women everywhere. But she started out just like you, a fun-loving kid. Amelia was born July 24th, 1897. Right from the start, she was pumping her little arms and legs. Her sister Muriel was born almost 2.5 years later. Because Muriel couldn't say Amelia, she called her sister Mealy. Amelia called Muriel Pidge. Both girls were rough and tumble tomboys. Their mother, Amy, encouraged their outdoor activity. I don't believe in bringing up nice little girls who only play with dolls and wear dresses, she said. She had blue gym suits sewn for them so they could race, jump, and climb trees, just like the boys. Amelia and Muriel did not care for dolls, but they each had a favorite toy. Amelia's was a wooden donkey. "I'll call you Donk," she said. Muriel's favorite toy was an elephant named Ellie. Donk and Ellie followed the girls everywhere. Amelia always wanted to do what boys did. One year she asked her father for a football. He bought two, one for each of his daughters. "Throw one to Donk," cried Amelia as Muriel got ready to toss the ball. Like many children, Amelia and Muriel had active imaginations. Amelia thought up imaginary friends and imaginary horses. Amelia's imaginary horse was a palomino named Saladin. Muriel's horse was named Beelzebub. Most clever of all were Amelia's imaginary creatures. She called them DJs. When she misbehaved, she would blame the DJs for what had happened. "I don't know who ate the last piece of candy, Papa," she said. "It must have been the DJs." One Christmas, Amelia got a sled. At that time, a girl's sled was like a chair. To ride it, a girl had to sit up. But Amelia got a boy's sled, long and low to the ground. "It will be perfect for belly whopping," she cried. At the top of the hill one day, Amelia belly slammed to get started, just like the boys. As she zoomed down the hill, a horse-drawn cart pulled right in front of her. In a split second, Amelia had slid between the legs of the horse. Amelia laughed. "Had I been sitting up, either my head or the horse's ribs would have suffered in contact." "Probably the horse's ribs," she said. Amelia loved mechanical things. Her most famous creation was a roller coaster. The track was made of boards greased with lard. The car was an empty wooden crate. With a little help, Amelia climbed into the crate and launched herself down the track. At the end, the car flew into the air and crashed to the ground. Amelia was too excited to be hurt. "Oh, Pidge," she cried, "it's just like flying." Amelia also loved adventure, even if it was imaginary. Her grandmother's barn was the perfect place for such thrills. She and Pidge, along with some cousins, would climb into an old carriage in the barn. Together the group went on many wild and exciting trips without ever really leaving that barn. "Giddy up, old girl," Amelia yelled. "Those bandits are hot on our trail." "Yee-haw!" cried Muriel. As a child, Amelia learned to stay calm, even in scary situations. She had a large black dog named James Ferocious. One day, some boys teased him. Lunging and snarling, James broke his chain and chased the boys. They scrambled to the top of a shed for safety. Amelia heard the boys yelling and came running to help. "James Ferocious, you naughty dog," she said. "You've tipped over your water dish. Come along and I'll get you some more." This did the trick. James trotted after Amelia into the house. Amelia was not only calm, she was brave too. Muriel and Amelia sometimes traveled with their parents by train. During one trip, it rained and rained. The land near the train began flooding. As the train inched along, some passengers began to panic. Seeing the water, Muriel turned to her sister and asked, "Are you afraid, Mealy?" "Of course not," replied Amelia. Amelia saw her first airplane when she was 10 years old. The first airplane flight had taken place just a few years before, and the airplane Amelia saw was a simple-looking machine. "It's a thing of rusty wire and wood," she noted. "It's not at all interesting." Little did Amelia know that 10 years later, she would make airplanes the focus of her life. Although Amelia was an active child, she also liked to sit and read and think. She especially liked to think about what she might be when she grew up. True to form, Amelia wasn't interested in becoming a teacher, a nurse, or a housewife. "I want to be able to do what men do," she said. During that time, many jobs were thought to be men's jobs. Amelia kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings about women who were successful in areas such as advertising, law, and mechanical engineering. As a grown woman, Amelia did things that women never had. She took flying lessons, and she bought her own plane, which she named the Canary. Amelia was picked to be the first female passenger on a transatlantic flight. Soon after, her flying career took off. She flew regularly, entered races, and spoke to others about flying. Amelia's husband, George Putnam, organized her flights and scheduled the public talks she gave. In 1932, Amelia became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. It was a tough trip, more than 2,000 miles. Amelia grew tired during the journey. The plane's fuel tank leaked, and at one point, flames shot out of the engine. But that didn't rattle Amelia. Almost 15 hours after Amelia had started, she landed in Ireland. Her transatlantic flight was a historic achievement. Amelia had become one of the greatest aviators in the world. Although many of her journeys were difficult, she never lost the fun-loving, can-do attitude she had as a child. So boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our first read aloud of Women's History Month. I also hope you're celebrating this week, which is Read Across America Week, by getting out any type of book, fantasy, mystery, anything that could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, a biography. Enjoy yourselves this week with a book. Take care.